Typically, as the summer heats up in July and August, we start seeing sales activity decline as people focus towards their vacation plans. But that's not what we saw this summer. In the month of July, we actually saw sales increase by 5% relative to June. And so far, this pace has continued into the month of August, with sales activity remaining strong. So what's happening in the market? Has Vancouver's housing market finally rebounded? I'm Adina with Adina YVR Vancouver Real Estate Group and Oakland Realty here with your August 2025 market update. Let's jump right into the numbers and take a look at what's happening. In the month of July, Greater Vancouver Realtors reported 2,286 homes sold on the MLS. This is an increase of 5% relative to June, and it's down 2% relative to this time last year. Now, relative to the 10-year sales average for the month of July, it's down 14%. But what's significant to note here is that this is a much smaller gap than what we were seeing in the previous month, when our sales activity was down 26% relative to the 10-year sales average. Looking at this by property type, we see that for detached homes, we had 660 sales. This is a decrease of 4% relative to this time last year. For attached townhomes and duplexes, we had a total of 459 home sales, and this is an increase of 5% relative to this time last year. And for condo apartments, we had 1,158 sales. This is a decrease of 3% relative to this time last year. While home buyers became more active in the month of July, it was the opposite for home sellers. We had just over 5,600 homes newly listed for sale on the MLS, and this is a decline of 11% relative to June, and it's up just 1% relative to this time last year. Relative to the 10-year sales average for the month of July, this was up about 12.5%. And as a result of this increase in pace in sales and a decrease in the pace of new listings coming onto the market, we saw total inventory levels subside. So we currently have just over 17,000 homes in total listed on the MLS, and this is down about 2% relative to June, yet it's still up about 20% relative to this time last year, and it's up 40% relative to the 10-year sales average for the month of July. So what this shows us is that we are starting to see signs of rebounding, but inventory levels are still very healthy and there's a lot of selection out there for buyers. So how is this impacting prices? Well, if you've been watching our videos, you know that the leading indicator we watch for is the sales to active listings ratio. And this simply shows us the number of sales in a given month divided by the total active listings left over at the end of that month. And this shows us whether we're in a buyer's market or seller's market territory. When this ratio is below 12% for a sustained period of time, we're in buyer's market territory and prices are on their way down. And when this ratio is above 20% for a sustained period of time, we're in seller's market territory and prices are typically on their way up. In the month of July, this ratio finished off at 13.8%, and this is an increase of 1% from June when we were at 12.8%, and it's an increase relative to May as well when we were at 13.4%. And it puts us right on par with where we were in April, again at 13.8%. And when we're in this range between 12 to 20% for a sustained period of time, we're in what's called balanced market territory, and that's typically when prices stabilize. Looking at this broken down by property type, we see that for detached homes, the ratio is currently 10.2%, which is still in buyer's market territory, but it is up slightly from 9.9% in June. For attached townhomes and duplexes, the ratio is sitting at 16.7%, which is in balanced market territory and almost unchanged from June when it was at 16.9%. And for condo apartments, this ratio is currently 15.9%, again in balanced market territory, and it's up from 13.9% in June. So let's take a look at prices. The HPI composite benchmark price for all property types finished off the month at $1,165,300, and this is a decrease of 0.7% relative to June, and it's down 2.7% relative to this time last year. Looking at this by property type, we see that the benchmark price for detached homes is currently $1,974,400, and this represents a decrease of 1% relative to June, and it's a decrease of 3.5% relative to July last year. For apartment townhomes, the benchmark price is currently $1,099,200. This represents a decrease of 0.4% relative to June, and it's a decrease of 2.3% relative to this time last year. And for condo apartments, the HPI benchmark price is currently $743,700. And this price represents a decrease of 0.6% relative to June and a decrease of 3.2% relative to July last year. So what does all of this mean? Well, while it's a little too early to fully declare a rebound in the market, these are certainly indications that we typically see when the market starts to rebound and strengthen. So it'll be really important to watch to see what happens with sales activity in the month of August and also in September, as that will dictate what kind of fall market we're heading into. But from what we can see now, it does seem like we should be in for a relatively healthy and stable market. If you're thinking of making a move this year, now is the time to sit down with a real estate agent and strategize about how to take advantage of the market and get ahead of what's coming. If you're not currently working with a real estate agent and would like to discuss your options, you can schedule a consultation by clicking the link below here on the YouTube video or by clicking the link in my bio if you're watching this on Instagram. And to stay up to date with what's happening in the market, be sure to hit subscribe here on YouTube and follow me on Instagram at adina.yvr. That's it for now. Have a great rest of your summer and I can't wait to see you in September.